Good morning. You're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint. I'm Darshan Mehta. Most of the global markets did end up muted in trade. If you're looking at the US markets, the European markets, you can see that the US markets were flat in trade except for the Nasdaq, which was up in trade. European markets did well for itself, but the opening in Asia is not all that attractive. They managed to recover from the lows of the day. The Nikkei moved into the green. It's up almost 0.3%. The Hong Kong markets and is trading with a negative bias, but the SGX Nifty is indicating a negative outlook. It's recovered from the lows of the day. At one point of time, it was down almost 30 points, but ahead of it, the ADRs were rather weak in trade. All the ADRs ended with a negative bias, led by Wipro, which was down almost 2.5%. All the ADRs were down in trade. Even HDFC Bank was down almost 0.7%. Let's take a look at the SGX Nifty, which has managed to recover slightly from the lows of the day. It was down over 30 points at one point of time, now down 20 points below the 10,800 mark in trade. Now the Nifty was down almost 50 points, led by the weakness in IT. Some bit of traction, but mid caps and small caps did manage to maintain the positive stance, but there was very marginal. The Nifty Bank and the Nifty PSU Bank also saw selling pressure that came into themselves. Some of the sectors that were in focus, the Nifty Pharma was up almost 1.8%, given the fact that there was enough traction that was seen. The IT and the media indices lost in trade yesterday. Now, if you're looking at what's happened as far as this month is concerned, the Nifty Pharma is up almost 11%. PSU Bank and energy stocks have been doing well. What is not doing well is the high beta. So you have the infra, real estate and small caps, which are down in trade. Now, interestingly, let's take a look at the week to date performance, and you can see that the Nifty Pharma in the last 4 trading session is up almost 6%, led by PSU Banks and the energy index. And what has not done well this week is basically the same. The metal index, the infra index, and the Wix is down almost 6% in trade. Probably should rise as the market moves down in trade today. Glaxopharma, Page Industries, Reliance was at a lifetime high. Tata Elxsi, TCS ahead of the AGM. All of them trading at new record highs. VIP Industries also has had a stellar run. Now, if you're looking at the flows, FIs have been sellers, DIs have been buyers in the market. Or FI side, they bought in almost 432 crores. So most of the buying of the HDFC Bank has actually gone off because of the selling that we've seen in the broader markets. So it's a liquidity market driven only by DIs currently. As far as the contribution was concerned, Reliance, Sun Pharma and HDFC Bank were the main contributors, but Infosys, TCS, IT and private sector bank like ICICI Bank caused the Nifty to drop by almost 50 points. Yesterday, if you're looking at what happened on the index side, there was long unwinding that was happening. Open interest was down 3%. Similar was the case with the Nifty Bank. There was long unwinding that was seen. Open interest was down almost 1% for the Nifty Bank. Now, if you're looking at where positions were taken yesterday, call writers became active from 10,800 to 11,000 levels, and put writers, since the market fell down, had to shed positions in open interest. But broadly, it will be range bound between the 10,700 to 10,900 mark. There is very big support coming in for the markets at the 10,700 mark. Now, if you're looking at the stocks in focus, these are the stocks in the FNO band. Balrampur Chini, Dewan Housing was down in trade. Just Dial as well as Jet Airways are the 4 stocks in the FNO band. Now, the PCR also fell down both for the Nifty and the Bank Nifty since the market was moving down. So, Nifty PCR at 1.55, Bank Nifty PCR at 0.95. Now, if you're looking at stocks I need to watch out for, ICICI Prudential, obviously the OFS is going on, strong demand, high open interest build up of almost 92%. Probably should see a little bit of short covering that will come in since it's oversubscribed. Aurobindo Pharma is seeing a lot of movement on short covering. Open interest was down almost 0.8%. SRF saw short covering, open interest was down almost 7% on the counter. And the final stock I want to talk about is Mindtree, which saw fresh shorts. Open interest build up was 5% for the counter. But now let's go across to Bloomberg's Paul Allen for all the top international headlines.
The US economy has become the world's bright spot as China and Europe cool. It's likely to rack up growth of at least 4% in the current quarter. That's being spurred by solid consumer spending, including May retail sales that beat expectations on Thursday. IMF chief Christine Lagarde says Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin has criticized the fund's US forecasts.
He was clear that he regards our medium-term outlook as too pessimistic. And frankly, I hope he's right, and we are wrong, because that would be good news for the US and it would be good news for the global economy as well.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the US, China, South Korea and Japan agree that sanctions on North Korea won't be lifted until Kim Jong-un's regime can show complete disarmament. It's a pushback against Pyongyang's claims that penalties would soon start being relaxed. Pompeo met with China's president after briefing foreign ministers on the Trump-Kim summit.
We have made very clear that the sanctions and the economic relief that North Korea will receive will only happen after the full denuclearization, the complete denuclearization of North Korea.
Senior EU officials have informally discussed whether the UK might need to stay in the bloc past March 2019 if Brexit negotiations don't accelerate. Talks are stalled on the Irish border and a future trade deal, and officials in Brussels have privately questioned whether they can finish on time. Prime Minister Theresa May faces another showdown in Parliament next week with rebel pro-EU lawmakers. The US Securities and Exchange Commission says transactions involving the Ether digital token are not subject to federal securities rules. It ends months of speculation that have weighed on the second most valuable digital currency. Ether jumped more than 10%, while Bitcoin had its biggest rally in almost a month. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Paul Allen. This is Bloomberg.
Well, they are trying to give as clear a signal to the markets as they can. They are trying to tell them what they're going to do and what are the risks about what they're doing and how they might react if things go wrong. For now, their assessment is that the economy is doing pretty well, so this allows them to stop buying, and this will probably allow them to raise rates sometime in the second half of 2019. But at the same time, they have clearly said that uncertainties is growing from geopolitics to trade. We know very well what is going on in the US, what is going on in Italy, and all that. And this means that they want to keep their option open to change their programs if needed.
Back to local equity markets, while shareholders of Punj Lloyd may have some reason to cheer, given that Punj Lloyd in an exchange notification has informed that the NCLT may not admit ICICI Bank's insolvency plea, given that more than 90% of the lenders have agreed to support the resolution plan, which will be under the leadership of State Bank of India. SBI, on behalf of all the lenders, have opposed the ICICI Bank insolvency application to NCLT. The SBI-led consortium, in fact, has said that full recovery process for the company is possible, and the dues can be recovered only if the company is allowed to be completed the 28 ongoing projects. The company can. This is what a tribunal was also informed in a meeting which was held on June 14, and tribunal, listening to all the views which have been in support of the company, decided the next date of hearing around July 24, 2018. Just to give you a little background about where this comes from ICICI Bank actually filing an insolvency plea before NCLT, given that the total debt of the company is now 6,000 odd crore. This is as per the PTI copy, and it says that out of that you have around roughly 850 crore which the company owes to ICICI Bank. Also, Punj Lloyd in its Q4 filing said about the company submitting a proposal for restructuring. In terms of the financial highlights, you would actually see the situation of the company pretty much improving. If you look at the revenues, which have been up by 5%, the losses have been narrowed, and also the EBIT performance, though it's a loss on the operating performance level, but then that too as a percent has shrunk. If you look at the shareholding pattern of the company, promoter shareholding stands at a good 36%, public owns 64%, but also to bear in mind the fact that out of 36% of promoter shareholding, roughly more than 60% of its stake is pledged.
Let's also get your check on the commodity space now. It's been a good week for oil since it has gained nearly 2% so far this week, and it has actually risen all days for the week. Now, this is on the back of Saudi Arabia being confident of delivering the output production increase that the market is likely expecting. As far as brokerages on oil are concerned, we have one note from Barclays which says that OPEC is likely to raise the output and non-OPEC countries will follow suit. but it was the base metals where we got the major cues yesterday in the commodity space. The index itself declined more than 1%, the most since April this year. Now the Chinese data in fact suggested a slowdown in the economy, and the dollar index also played a part in the decline of the commodities. Nickel was down over 2%, that was the most in over 6 weeks. Lead and copper declined more than 1% each, while we had zinc and aluminium which fell less than 1%. Now tin was the only base metal which in fact closed with a positive bias. Dollar index not only played a part in the base metal space but also helped gold prices. Now gold in euro terms rose the most in about 8 months on the back of a dovish ECB.
Among the stocks that will be in focus today includes ICICI Prudential Life Insurance Company. Now, ICICI Bank has said that they intend to exercise the oversubscription option to sell an additional 1% stake in the life insurance lender. So yesterday they were able to sell about 1%, so and another 1% today. So this is overall in line with the board approval for a total or up to 2% stake sale in the life insurer. So this ICICI Pru might continue to remain under pressure even today. That apart, we're also watching out for Wipro on the back of two deal wins. One is an air cargo management contract from LATAM Cargo, and yet another contract from Nokia. It's a supply chain management contract, so watch out for that one. You also have Tamil Nadu Newsprint. Now the board has approved expanding the pulp mill capacity with a total spend of 2,520 crores. So that's a name to watch out for. Also some developments with respect to ICICI Bank. Now there's an ET report which says that former Supreme Court Judge B.N. Sri Krishna will investigate the whistleblower complaint and allegations or conflict charges against Chanda Kochhar. Remember in May the bank board had said that they will be looking at conducting an inquiry based on a whistleblower complaint. So this is another name to watch out for. That apart, also a couple of bulk deals. One is GPT Infra. Ampersand and Growth Opportunities Fund sold 0.68% stake in the company yesterday. And yet another bulk deal was on Saturn Credit Care Network, where Goldman Sachs Singapore has bought 0.73%. The seller was DBS International Asia. So watch out for some of these names.
Well, I think the Walt Disney Company is going to have to raise its bid. I think they're going to have to get very close to, if not above, the Comcast bid. Because at the end of the day, it does come down to price. But also there's the aspect of, which does Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch family, what do they prefer? Do they prefer cash now and the tax liability associated with that? Or do they prefer to own stock in the pro forma combined company going forward? We think they absolutely want to be long-term investors in this combined company, and I believe that they prefer the Disney-Fox combination. I think they believe that that is a superior company going forward, and if they're going to be a shareholder in this combined company, they prefer it to be with Disney.
Well, Amazon has led an investment of about 43 crores in a Bangalore-based payment startup, ToneTag. The round also saw participation for other investors such as MasterCard, Mohandas Pai, 314 Capital, and other existing investors. Amazon individually has put in about 32 crores in the startup. That's according to the filings made to the register of companies. Now, what's in it for Amazon really? Amazon has been trying to build and expand use case for its payments platform, Amazon Pay, and want more and more user to use Amazon Pay for regular transaction or regular purchase on the Amazon platform, and also for other offline or online transaction as well. And that brings us to what really does ToneTag do. Now, ToneTag enables a regular banking app or a wallet to make sound-based contactless transaction on point-of-sale terminal, ATM machines, and even they have their own offline retail pod. Think of it, if you have an Amazon Pay wallet and if you go to a restaurant for a dinner, you can't really make an offline transaction if you have an Amazon Pay wallet. But if it's powered by ToneTag, all you have to do is open your Amazon Pay wallet, bring it closer to the point of sale terminal that is powered by ToneTag, enter the amount, and the payment is done. So Amazon really wants to replace the offline transaction with this seamless, contactless, sound-based payments method. Now, according to people familiar with the development, this pilot is going to go live, will roll out in the coming 2 to 3 months, and most likely Prime customers in India will be the first one to get this pilot, get the access to this pilot.
And the big brokerage calls for the day, first we have is Investec on RBL Bank. Now the brokerage has maintained a buy rating on the stock but has raised the target price to 660 from 630. According to the brokerage, the bank is rapidly scaling up partnership with different banks and non-banking financial companies, thereby creating a niche in the credit card segment for the bank. Now this niche will help the bank grow at a faster rate going forward, according to the brokerage. Also, according to the brokerage, the visibility on return on asset improvement is very high for the next 2 years, and the brokerage is expecting a 10 basis points improvement and the return on asset for the next 2 years, leading to a 40% net profit growth for the next 2 years, according to the brokerage. Second, we have is Deutsche Bank on UPL. Now the brokerage has maintained its buy rating with a target price of 890. Now the cross currency movements are so far favorable for UPL, according to the brokerage. Also, the margins are expected to expand going forward, driven by the backward integration plans of the company. Also, the brokerage says that the UPL is trading at a reasonable discount to the Indian and the global peers, and it is the preferred pick in the Indian agri-input sector.
Let's also get your check on the top 3 stocks to watch out based on the delivery buying and selling as of yesterday. The first stock on the list is Jubilant FoodWorks. Now that was up about 2% in trade yesterday and saw delivery buying of nearly 180 crores. The delivery volume more than doubled at 118% as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged about 61% as compared to its 5-day average. Second stock on the list is Bharti Infratel. Now that was down about 1.5% in trade and saw delivery selling of nearly 142 crores. The delivery volume surged to 92% as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged about 62% as compared to its 5-day average. Last and final stock to watch out for now, Mindtree. Yesterday it was down about 3.5% and saw delivery buying of 55 crores. The delivery volume actually surged about 55%, and the delivery volume total volume surged about 90% as compared to its 5-day average.
You don't need to be a president to enjoy eating out in Singapore. It's one of the world's most exciting dining destinations. In terms of culinary tradition, Singapore is as rich as it gets. The city embraced Malay, Chinese and Indian cuisines long before it discovered the pleasures of European-style fine dining. It's now home to luxurious French and Italian restaurants, weighed down with Michelin stars. There's such competition, you're likely to eat very well, even if you just stay in your hotel. But the heart of the Singapore food scene is to be found on the street, in night markets and hawker centres, where you can eat inexpensive dishes that are packed with flavour. Dishes like chili crab and spicy laksa, noodle dishes such as Hokkien prawn mee and char kway teow, or even simple chicken rice. People sometimes have the image of Singapore as being a bit sterile. The beautiful shopping malls, the fabulous hotels, the spotless streets of the central business district. That's only part of the story. This is a city with soul. It's hot and steamy, and it's home to a riot of big, dirty flavours, with food that demands you get your hands greasy.
Well, you'll find that and a lot more on the website BloombergQuint.com. Of course, all the live market action over the course of the day will be right here on Bloomberg Quint Live. There are also several stories on the website that you can read. Here are just a couple of them. Saudi Arabia's oil minister has said it's inevitable that the OPEC and its allies will agree to boost oil output gradually. An increase in production would cool oil prices, which have spiked in the recent past, putting pressure on India's finances. Back home, veteran journalist and rising Kashmir editor Shujat Bukhari and his personal security officer were shot dead by unidentified gunmen outside the newspaper's office in the heart of Srinagar. Bukhari, who was in his 50s, was leaving his office in Press Enclave in the city centre Lal Chowk for an iftar party when he was shot. All right, that's all you need to know going into trade today. Up next is Indian Open, and we'll take you through Market Open. Do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.